The world once feared its name, the Ottoman Empire. For 6 centuries, it ruled from the deserts of Arabia to the gates of Vienna. But when this giant finally fell, a new world was born. The question is, how does an empire that ruled half the known world simply vanish? Welcome to Neo Historica A.I, where history comes alive through artificial intelligence. Today we uncover the rise and fall of one of history's most powerful empires, and how its collapse shaped the modern world we live in. It all began in 1299, when a Turkish warlord named Osman I united the Anatolian tribes. It wasn't long before his descendants carved out a massive empire across 3 continents. They controlled the crossroads of the world, a bridge between Europe and Asia. The ultimate prize, Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, fell to their cannons in 1453. It was reborn as Istanbul, the heart of Islam's greatest empire. For centuries, this city was the center of global power, wealth, and culture. But the Ottomans were not just conquerors. They were masters of administration, architects of a multicultural society. They blended Islamic tradition with European diplomacy in a way no one had before. In their lands, mosques stood near churches and synagogues. Trade flowed freely through their ports, bringing spices from the east and textiles from the west. Ideas traveled just as fast. The Ottoman court was a beacon of art, science, and literature. They were at the forefront of civilization. Yet, hidden within all that brilliance, a silent decay had already begun. A slow decline that would take centuries to fully unfold. By the 17th century, the world was changing, and it was changing faster than the Ottomans could adapt. Across the continent, European kingdoms were experiencing the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. New technologies, new military strategies, and new economic systems were giving them a decisive edge. Meanwhile, the Ottoman court seemed stuck in the past, clinging to old traditions and resisting change. Their once feared armies, the legendary Janissaries, had become a symbol of this stagnation. Once the elite fighting force of the empire, they grew resistant to modernization, staging revolts whenever their privileges were threatened. They became a power unto themselves, a force for instability rather than strength. The great turning point came in 1683 at the Siege of Vienna. For the second time, Ottoman armies stood at the gates of this critical European capital. But this time, they were defeated. This loss marked the end of their expansion into Europe. From that moment on, the mighty empire was in retreat. The hunter had become the hunted, and while the armies faltered on the battlefield, a different kind of poison was spreading within the empire's borders: corruption. Behind the opulent walls of palaces and the grand titles of pashas, bribery and self-interest were rampant. Local governors acted like independent kings, skimming taxes and ignoring the sultan's commands. The vast empire that once united East and West was now struggling just to unite itself. All this weakness did not go unnoticed. The ambitious powers of Europe, Britain, France, and Russia, saw an opportunity. They began to refer to the Ottoman realm as the sick man of Europe. They weren't just observing its decline, they were actively helping it along, eager to carve up its territories for themselves. And in the slow, painful sickness of this once great empire, the map of the modern world we know today began to take its shape. The 19th century was the beginning of the end. The empire was torn apart by the powerful force of nationalism, an idea imported from Europe. In the Balkans, a region the Ottomans had ruled for centuries, people began to see themselves not as Ottoman subjects, but as Greeks, Serbs, and Bulgarians. Inspired by the French Revolution, they demanded independence. Revolutions erupted like wildfire across the peninsula. Wars for independence were fought with brutal ferocity on both sides. One by one, provinces broke away, shrinking the empire's European holdings. The sick man was losing its limbs. In a desperate attempt to survive, the Ottoman sultans launched a series of reforms known as the Tanzimat era. They tried to modernize everything: the army, the government, the legal system. They built railways to connect their vast territories, introduced new laws based on European models, and even encouraged Western-style dress. But it was a case of too little, too late. The internal decay and external pressures were just too strong. Then came the final blow. 1914. World War I ignited across Europe. The Ottoman Empire, in a fateful decision, joined the Central Powers alongside Germany and Austria-Hungary. They hoped a victory would help them reclaim lost territories and restore their prestige. Instead, the war would finish what centuries of decay had started. For 4 years, Ottoman soldiers fought bravely on multiple fronts, from the deserts of Arabia to the shores of Gallipoli. But the empire was exhausted, its economy shattered, its people weary of war. By 1918, it was all over. The empire lay in ruins, its armies defeated, its capital occupied by Allied troops. The last sultan fled into exile, and the 600-year-old dynasty came to an unceremonious end. From the ashes of this colossal wreck, a new figure rose. He was a soldier, a brilliant general who had won fame at Gallipoli. His name was Mustafa Kemal, later known as Ataturk, the father of the Turks. He was determined to build a new nation from the rubble of the old empire. Ataturk's revolution was more than just political. It was a complete transformation of society. He didn't want to save the empire. He wanted to bury it. He led a successful war of independence against the occupying powers, driving them out and establishing the modern borders of Turkey. Then, he began his radical reforms. He abolished the caliphate, the religious leadership of the Islamic world that the sultans had held for centuries. He replaced the Arabic script with a new Latin alphabet, making it easier for people to read and write. He introduced secular laws, separated religion from the state, and gave women the right to vote. He redefined what it meant to be a citizen of this new land. Identity was no longer tied to the Ottoman past or to Islam, but to the new modern secular Republic of Turkey. The Ottoman Empire was gone, but its legacy is everywhere. The borders of many countries in the modern Middle East, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, were drawn by European powers from the provinces of the fallen empire, creating lines on a map that still fuel conflict today. The power struggles in the Balkans and the Eastern Mediterranean are echoes of old imperial rivalries. The memories of millions of people across the world are tied to ancestors who lived under the crescent flag. Empires may fall, their palaces may crumble into dust, but their shadows never truly fade. They live on in the world they left behind. This is Neo Historica A.I, bringing the past to life, one story at a time. If history fascinates you as much as it does us, subscribe and join our community. We'll be back soon to breathe life into more of the world's forgotten empires and untold stories. Thanks for watching.